Aw,
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi.
I want to know if you. I want to know. Did they get that part?
They
or
didn't
just...
hear. Okay, chat context. I turned their mics on first and said, "You're hot, guys," and Snap responded with, "Oh, thank you."
You know,
Thank you.
positive encouragement is always welcome.
Yeah, we appreciate the compliment.
Good
Hi
morning.
guys.
Good morning. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to what is this? Our third episode of Highlight
Yeah.
Heroes,
Our third
with
episode.
Thomas, I Snap Plastic. So excited to have you here. For those of you who aren't familiar with Thomas's work, he's like a prolific gunpla builder, mini painter, mini builder. He does tons of awesome content on TikTok, and he'll share that information with you later. Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to hand it off straight to Parker to do a few announcements.
Okay, so Friday we have Rolling Tides. At our new time, you guys are playing at 7 now, correct?
That's
Am I
right.
doing this right? All right, we're 7 Eastern now on Friday. This Saturday, you guys, unfortunately, we have a day off for Conundrum Company. I guess, unfortunately for you guys, it's good for us. So we will not be here Saturday. We'll be back next Saturday. And Sunday, we have a special one-shot called Battle of the Bards, DM'd by our very own Josh, at 6 p.m. Eastern. So that one should be a lot of fun.
It's a weird one. Parker, you're in it too. Don't forget that.
I am in it.
And
So
it's
if
weird,
you guys
guys.
like singing and weird talents and bards.
Like, we're taking Battle of the Bards as far as we possibly can with the medium given us. And we'll see how
Yeah.
that turns out. So please come.
Yeah. But that's it. That's our week.
All right. So we'll get started with things. The first thing we usually do is kind of ask folks what they're making. So Snap, tell us, what are you building?
So, I was super excited to be invited to this because I love sharing my love of things with other people who love the things that I love. Imagine how that works. I don't have a lot of minis, but I do have a lot of Gundams in my backlog. So I decided to build the Alto Flight type, the Navy. These are 30-minute missions. They're made by Bandai. The gimmick here is that they're supposed to be able to be built in 30 minutes. I'm incredibly competitive, so I timed myself. I can get one of these done in 27 minutes or so. It didn't look very good, so I'm going to try and go for quality over speed this time. But yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Well, and there's the added challenge of we're going to be asking you probing questions throughout the entire time as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
really
I'm
hard
going to
cutting
sit
stuff.
here and look pretty. I was dead.
Parker, what are you
Perfect.
doing today?
I'm painting. I keep upping my ante, but I'm painting a little elven ranger. Just a standard little one before I try my Hero Forge one.
Now, Ranger is your favorite class, right?
It is. Real life ranger bard multi-class. That's what I am.
Hell yeah. I am in partial honor of Snap, although I'm not building a Gunpla, because you don't want to see me flounder with that on the live stream, so I'll stick with the minis. I am going to be assembling one of these steampunk horsey boys here. The light is too much. So they're Cyber Horse Ranger. They're from Warhammer. They're Skitarii. We won't get into the lore, but I have all the parts here, so I'm going to be doing gluing and a little bit of stuff like that. So if you guys have questions surrounding those kinds of things, we're each doing pretty different little projects here, so it'll be kind of neat. But I think we'll get right into the question component, and it starts with a big hard-hitting question right out of the gate. Snap, see, you're an experienced gunpla builder, right? And you do.
I have a problem. I'm okay with admitting it. I'm not going to change, though.
It is a beautiful wall. God, it's good.
Beautiful problem.
Some of those builds are so big. Jeez. But anyway, so tell us what got you started in this hobby. Like how did you end up being the gunpla builder?
So, okay, we're going to take a trip down memory lane. I'm also going to kind of narc on myself for how old I am. Do you remember Toonami?
Yes.
And
Yes.
the Midnight Run? Okay. So there was the normal Cartoon Network where you watched Yogi Bear and the Scooby Gang. And then if you misbehaved and stayed up past your bedtime, you saw this beautiful robot named Tom. Media connection there because Thomas. And he announced that, hey, Dragon Ball Z and this amazing other show with giant robots, Gundam Wing, was on. And I loved it. I fell in love with the Japanese mecha genre. Um, and I specifically fell in love with the Death Scythe. He is my favorite Gundam. Like, love Dual Maxwell the pilot, and I wanted it. I wanted to build that, and so I immediately rushed out to the toy store and I picked up one of the early high grades that they built back then, which were total garbage by comparison to today's standards. And I miffed it, and it was not good. I immediately threw it away, and I don't like thinking about it. Um, but I kept building and experimenting with other model kits. And whenever we went to, like, my mom loved going to thrift stores. Whenever we went to thrift stores, I always checked out the old model kit section. They would have stuff, but parts would always be missing, or it would be an outdated kit. Instructions would be missing, that kind of thing. So, but I wouldn't stop building. Um, and I think I was telling you guys before we started, back in last January is when I actually started posting my stuff pretty consistently to social media, and finding that, other people like this stuff. Uh, so yeah, that's where it started. And once you start, you can't really stop.
That's all she wrote, right?
I I love that. No, I love that you immediately were like, so Toonami, and then like that little Toonami like late night right before it gets to Adult Swim, like right before Inuyasha starts playing, like right before it's like where Cyborg 009 lived and like the Gundam ones. So I do recall.
It is such a that is like a serious throwback, and it creates that nostalgia trip for me because I remember those exact, like, our parents would be like, okay, one more show, off to bed, and they'd go about doing their thing, and then we'd be like, oh, we didn't see the time, and we had watched Gundam all the way through, right? Like that's the way you do it. Oh, so good, so good.
It's so good. Oh gosh. So, our obviously, if you've kind of seen what we're doing here, we do a lot of D&D stuff. So, how did you get into D&D?
So I got into D&D because of my dad. My dad actually started. He's a University of Minnesota Duluth graduate, alumni. He started a D&D club there, and it still is running to this day. So he has like a bunch of the really old Dungeons and Dragons books, and I was obviously too young to understand, but he brought me through my first adventures of traveling, the wilds, fighting orcs and goblins, and The Hobbit was one of my favorite books growing up. I think I actually read it on a live stream once as a bedtime story, uh,
Aw.
which was awesome and total fun. But I always liked the idea, and I've always been a decent storyteller. Um, and so I like the idea of kind of taking myself and putting a little bit of piece of me into this fantasy world, doing things that normally there's no possible way that anyone could ever do. So my dad made me do it, I guess, is the best way to answer that question.
Thanks a lot, Dad. Uh,
How dare you impart to me joy and
oh my
happiness?
God, these fond memories I have.
Relatable.
That's really good though. I love that you read the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit. Was it the Hobbit?
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing, or how far did you get in a live stream?
I got through chapter 3, I think, is how far I got, and then my throat gave out because, like, it started out very, soporific and professional sounding. Telling you to like this, because like it was just done.
Well, having played D&D with you, I know you do voices. Were you doing voices for every character?
So I was trying to until we got to the dwarves, and that got like a little bit too confusing because I'm like, okay, young dwarf, old dwarf, they all sound Irish and Scottish and a little bit of British in there.
Yeah, how do you differentiate them all? It just sounds
I was really hoping that I could make it to Smeagol because I do a really good Smeagol impression. But then, my voice gave up before we got to that point. And I fear that if I had tried to, it would not have gone well.
you just end up in a hospital.
What happened to his vocal folds? He read Lord of the Rings.
So because this is just a little offshoot of everything, but because I love The Hobbit, and I was just telling people about this, and they're probably tired of me in the server talking about this. Did you watch the 70s animated Hobbit movie?
That was actually one of the first forays into like old cartoons. So let's also talk about how old I am. My grandpa
You're in good company, dude.
My grandpa had one of those old VHS copiers. So it was two VCRs basically stuck together so you could clone VCR tapes. But he would also record stuff from TV. So like you had the original Star Wars A New Hope, but you had to fast forward through like the big red commercials or the original Ovaltine commercials. Um, and so he also had The Hobbit, and it was like, I loved it. It was great. I loved the artwork. I loved how silly it was. Nostalgia is a great like rose-colored glass to look through in that. But yeah, I did watch The Hobbit. I loved it, and then I saw the Lord of the Rings variation of that, and man, those ring race gave me nightmares. The
Yeah.
sound they made,
Ooh,
because like the way the animation was done was part of it was pure animation, like obviously color cell, but that they intercut it with like live action that was like had a slight animation tint to it. So that one scene where the ring race are going to town on these bedrolls, you think that, oh no, Frodo just got shanked.
yeah,
It looked really real.
just breaking young hearts, essentially. We've got a bunch. This is a weird cut, and we're going off rail. Did you guys ever watch The Willow?
No?
Have you ever seen the movie The Willow?
Yes, I saw parts of it.
Okay,
How about the Dark Crystal?
Dark Crystal,
Yes.
fantastic, and the new one is really good too.
I
seen
haven't. I haven't watched the new like series deal. I
Highly
haven't done that
recommend.
one.
Highly recommend. Okay. I'm gonna challenge everybody to watch The Willow. Excuse me, it's not The Willow. It's called Willow. And tell me when it's done, because I got a story about that for you. But back to the interview. Not to derail what's going on.
Oh, we're not going to keep playing like old TV show Chicken, like the original.
Yeah,
I love that. Did anybody else watch Cyborg 009? No, I'm kidding. Let's go back on this.
Let's just fuck the interview. Let's just do this.
Let's just talk about things.
So we've learned kind of how you got into D&D. So, what's your favorite class to play?
Warlock.
Yeah.
Warlock all day, every day. It's just so much fun to play. I think it's interesting that if you look at the Warlock spell list, it's like it takes little pieces from everything else. So it adds a lot of versatility, but it's also, if the DM says, hey, pick whatever you want. Okay, I'm going to be a Warlock. Okay, cool. And then you come to the game, and then his big bad says, I'm going to do this. And the Warlock can go counterspell. And they're like, wait, what? Because obviously, I like the gotchas.
Yeah, the options, right?
But I like being in real life as well as in D&D. I enjoy supporting other people. So I like being the Swiss Army guy who, okay, you want to do that? I will prop you up and let you do that. Be cool.
That's awesome. Such a wholesome answer to that question.
I know. That's such a nice answer. Like, I like this class because it lets me help people. I'm like, what? Okay, so do you have because this question is almost so relatable because Josh has a very specific race that he likes to play. Do you have a favorite race that you like to play?
I need you to answer this question right. There is a right answer to this question.
Boy, oh boy. Now I'm really nervous. No, I'm joking.
You're good.
What for your actual answer is the right answer?
Really, genuinely, what is your favorite?
I love the Dragonborn. I love them because, kind of like the Warlock, you can kind of cherry pick what you want. Because if you know that you're going to be going into a certain environment, like a heavy water environment, pick a black dragon or a green dragon, get a little bit of amphibiousness with you. My only beef is they don't have dark vision, and I'm like, they're dragons. How can they not see in the dark? That's dumb. But no, I love the concept of a breath weapon. And when I first started playing D&D with my dad, I looked at the monster manual. That was the first book I actually got into because it had the most pictures. Right. And I was like, I want to be a dragon. He's like, you can't be a dragon, but I want to be a dragon. And then 5e came out. I'm like, guess what, Dad? Yes, I can.
Yes, sucker. Thank you, Spellplay.
I can be a dragon if I want to. I guess I've never thought about the fact that Dragonborns don't have dark vision. Because don't pseudo-dragons have dark vision? And actual dragons have dark vision?
Actual dragons absolutely do.
They've got blind sight. So it's kind of like a echolocation that's don't you dare.
You are 1.41 miles.
I love that you knew too. You were like, "It's gonna happen."
Like I saw the ring light up. I'm like, "What did I?" No.
You said echo.
That was
Also,
pretty
I
perfect,
apologize
actually.
to all Amazon owners who now your devices, because I won't say it again, are now going nuts.
Okay.
Whoops.
I need you to do one thing before we move on from talking about your favorite
Right.
race.
Yep. This is important.
I need you to look at the camera and say, I, Snap Plastic, my favorite race in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is dwarves. Okay? You don't have to mean it. I just need you to say it.
I feel like I need like a little pen and paper that says, "Help me."
I'm holding the whole interview. You don't actually have to.
I, Snap Plastic, feel in the most honest and sincere way that dwarves are the superior race to play. I'm blinking Morse code help, but it's not working.
I love that. I love that.
People have already clipped it for us, so it's in the library. We're good to go. Excellent, excellent.
Perfect. Perfect.
Oh my god. All right, I released the questions to Parker.
Oh, you released the questions?
Yes,
the questions are by
now that I've gotten my answer, you're up.
Oh, okay. I think because it's. I just asked that one. I was like, wait, what?
You're right. Sorry. You know what? I lied. It's my question.
You were too focused on dwarves, and I was like, wait.
I had a goal, and I let it derail the entire interview, and I apologize.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
He's blinded by his own ambition, and he paid the cost for it.
I did. So you've shared your favorite class. What's a class that you'd like to try next? Like one that you're not familiar with, or have you played them all?
So I've played a bunch, but I really want to give humans a run. I've never played a human because if you have the option to be half angel, half demon, half dragon, you know, a dwarf, an orc, like an elf, why would you be a human? I'm already a human, and I'm not exactly pleased with the model. I'd like a refund, please. I'm done being an adult. I'd like to cancel my subscription. So no, I would like to give it a shot, if for no other reason to kind of be challenged.
They're neat to roleplay, right? Like it's a whole different ball game. That's valid. Sorry, Parker.
No, you're fine. I've never played a human either because I constantly, my boyfriend likes to play humans, and I'm like, why would you ever in a fantasy world want to be yourself? Like, why do you want to just be yourself? Like, I want to be better than myself. I want to play an elf or a Ganassi or, you know. I'm like, I don't get it.
Actually, that's a good question. How do you pronounce that particular race that are descended from genies?
All right, yeah. So Ganassi or Genasi, like they're both on. I don't remember. Matthew Mercer says it on D&D Beyond, and I think it's.
He says, Ganassi.
Ganassi,
I believe, because I always have pronounced it Genasi, and I've been told that I'm wrong because Matthew Mercer pronounces it this way. That's how I remember it. Is whatever I used to say is apparently incorrect. Although I don't think it really matters. You know.
See, I've been saying Gensai, so.
Hey, that's a good one.
Never heard it that way.
Now I feel really silly.
I mean, if you want to call him Gensai, call him Gensai, then, right? Like.
You're letting me off way too easy there, buddy.
Well. It's like when people are like pedantic about the way you say things in Lord of the Rings, and you're like, okay, Tolkien, you didn't write the books. Like, dial it back a little bit. It's
that's
okay.
fair. That's fair.
You're not Gary Gygax. Like, you know what I mean?
Okay, here's one for you. Completely outside the realm of fantasy, the circular baked goods that are not donuts. How do you pronounce that?
Circular baked goods that aren't donuts?
They look exactly like them, but they're not donuts. Starts with a B.
Bagels.
A beignet?
Talking about bagels.
Bagels?
Yeah.
Bagel.
You say bagel? You're a bagel?
I see bagel.
Bagel boy?
Bagel.
I'm from Minnesota, so there's a little bit of, like, we extend our O's and our A's and say, don't you know?
I don't know. If anything, the TikTok audio has taught me that it is bagel boys. Bagel boys.
Dun, dun, dun,
Lies! I will never believe it.
You know, because we pronounce things off TikTok audios now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how do you spell bananas?
Bananas. This shit is
It's
bananas.
Exactly.
Bananas.
It's hard.
Let's be real serious. I remember. I guess we're talking about how old I am now. I remember being in like, I don't even know, a grade that I had spelling tests and singing that. So that's how I remember having to spell that. And everyone can lie and say that they don't spell Wednesday like Wednesday, but I don't believe them.
Oh, I totally spell it that way.
I absolutely think Wednesday whenever I have to spell things.
Or Island is your land.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I'll stop derailing your interview. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's
No,
totally fine.
this is the nature of the beast. It's
This is
literally
how it
like,
works.
yeah, this is perfect.
Okay, so let's see. So going off of the question that was forever ago because we derailed, what race do you want to try next?
I think we got it backwards.
Human.
Yeah, you said human.
Did you say race?
I had asked class, but you answered human.
Oh,
What
yeah.
class do you want to play?
Oh, my bad. I feel so terrible now. So unprofessional.
Stop feeling bad. Who freaking cares?
Okay.
We're literally not even paying enough attention to be like, yeah?
Yeah.
We went with
Okay.
it.
Class-wise, I would like to play a wizard.
Okay.
I've always been fascinated when you look at the wizard spell list and how they have to basically be so hyper prepared with prepared spells and known spells and making sure you have enough resources to get new spells. That seems so interesting because, like I said, I like playing warlock because it's I made a pact with a demonic entity. I get as many spells as I want. I can only cast them twice, but Eldritch Blast.
Eldritch Blast.
Eldritch Blast.
Eldritch Blast. That's okay. So any specific subclass of wizard?
There are subclasses. Oh, like schools?
Yeah, schools. Sorry. That's
Oh,
my global term for.
I would probably go with enchantment because again, helping people.
Man, that is so wholesome.
Yeah, that is.
I mean, I've made the joke that my TikTok channel is rated P. If it were to get a rating, it would be E for everyone, or it would be PG or G. I was very conscientious about that when I first started posting stuff because the people that I showed my videos to were my nieces and nephews or little kids, and TikTok was starting to take off, and they were watching it, and if they ever saw my face, I didn't want them to see Uncle Thomas saying a bad word because I would never live that down.
A valid reason. A valid reason. Okay.
You look so sad. I'm sorry.
Who? Me?
No, Parker, you were just really in depth and focused. I'm I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
know.
that was me focusing. I'm
That's-
sorry. My face just stops being expressive sometimes if I focus too hard.
It
I
means
got
she's
paint
on.
somewhere it wasn't supposed to be.
She's on a really important part. Can we get a status update from everybody? Where is everyone on their projects right now? How are we doing?
Got a head, a waist, and a chest.
Oh, you are moving fast. Holy heck.
I have boots and a bow.
Aw.
That's what I have.
I currently am gluing. Oh god, that's not where the camera is. This is a terrible time for me to ask this question. Hold on. Let me finish putting this together. I have a horse torso.
Ooh, nice.
Aw.
Robo horse.
Oh, it's pretty.
Yeah, it's very,
That looks-
very.
I like it.
I despise the price tag for Game Workshop's pieces, but I love the intricacy that comes with their molds. I do have a question. What type of CA glue do you use?
I honestly, and I always say this with full disclaimer because what you said is exactly right. The price tags on Citadel are ridiculous. Their hobby stuff is fantastic, and I pay for it. So I use their plastic glue. I use pretty much all Citadel stuff, essentially for everything. Even for my D&D minis, I use the Citadel paints because I know the palettes. So I just do everything off of Citadel. I know Vallejo makes better paints for half the price, but I just have gotten so used to Citadel, which is where I started. The other reason I kind of stand by it is the cost point is prohibitive, but the support and the predetermined palettes for you to work with are very good. So when you go into Citadel and you have like your stack, they give you paint schemes that you can pull from, and it helps you learn the difference between a base paint and a layer paint and a shade slash wash and a dry brush, right? Like they have that predetermined for you. Otherwise, you're gonna have to figure it out on your own. So I use everything is the Citadel brand stuff pretty much. I even have the stupid like clippers and trimmers for Citadel. That being said, you can get all of these tools for practically half the price at your hobby store. Yeah.
So the reason I ask, and this is another thing that I do whenever I come on shows, and I'm sorry in advance, is I try to convert people.
Okay,
so,
what are you converting me to?
So this is Star Bond, and it's tinted super glue. So when this cures, it cures a solid white. You can also get it in black and other different pigments. So when you're trying to fill in seams on all white plastic, and you're trying to see where your glue begins and your plastic begins, it's really helpful. I also highly recommend.
Like I'm literally doing that right now, and it sounds very helpful.
So this is an aerosol accelerator. So what happens is you lay down your glue, you hit it with the accelerator, and it cures it instantly.
Ooh, okay, that's very good. So chat, Starbond, not a sponsor, but recommended
Not a
by
sponsor. Starbond, be my sponsor.
Yeah, sponsor Snap, please. I will give that a shot. You said Okay, I'll bug you about it afterwards, but I really like the Insta-Dry. I'm working with it. I'm literally filling a seam right now along the horse's butt. And
very specific. Very important. Yeah.
And it would be very, very helpful because it's one of those like weird, awkward nooks where you can't get the light in right either. Okay, Starbomb. Okay, I think you're up, Parker.
We've switched questions so many times at this
so
point.
I'm
gonna go to the next one. So,
we're gonna.
What would be your least favorite class to play and why? What's one that you tried that you don't like, or one that you don't want to try?
Okay. I tried playing a sorcerer, and I get that warlocks are pretty restrictive with their spell slots, but sorcerers, I just couldn't get behind it. Like, I tried it, I didn't like it. I don't know why. I was like, oh, this is gonna be so much fun. I'm gonna do twin spell, and I'm not sure if it was because of the DM I was playing with or just the class in itself, but yeah, sorcerer is no bueno for me.
So I don't think you're alone in that statement regarding sorcerer.
I have never tried it.
It's kind of a problem class.
I've never tried it, but I've been told by multiple people not to play it, so I think that says something.
Like when we ask the "What's your favorite class?" question, we never hear sorcerer.
So out of a test pool, a sample size of how many times have we done the show?
3.
3.
Sample size of 3.
Plenty of people outside of the show, and I still don't think that I've gotten that answer before, though. I don't think that I've ever had somebody be like, "Sorcerer is my favorite." I'm like trying to think back over all those people that I've asked, and I'm like.
By the way, 3 is enough for Welcome in Science.
Yeah.
When people say it, then it's proven fact.
Yep.
Buy it.
All right. So sorcerer. Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of people say that, and I get to see why. It's just kind of lackluster in a lot of ways. It really is. Sorry. So you kind of touched upon this. Go ahead.
I forgive you. You apologize. So I was forgiving you. I wasn't sure what was happening.
Oh, yeah, no, just me being distracted. You kind of touched upon the answer to this question a little bit, but how did you what was the spark that drove you to TikTok and content creation?
So I had always been a big fan of Mecha Gaiotsu and Zaku Aurelius and the other big Gunpla creators, and I thought, hey, I can do a YouTube channel. That'll be super fun. And whenever I started to kind of build momentum to it, it was always like, that seems like a lot of work. And then lo and behold, here comes this app called Vine, where you have 7 seconds of audio to try and do something. And I'm like, how can I cram something that normally takes me an hour or two to do into 7 seconds? And that did not work. iSnap Plastic Vine Edition was not successful. Because it wasn't even called iSnap Plastic. And then TikTok came along, and I was like, okay, I'll do a funny stop motion thing where I throw some parts on the table and it'll be assembled when it hits the table. That'll look cool. And then it just like tons of people started liking this, and the comments were finally Gunpla on TikTok. And I started searching. I'm like, no one else is doing this. I found an opening, and I just went for it because, and actually now a bunch of popular Gundam people on Instagram and YouTube are making the move to TikTok, and it's kind of nice to be able to say that I planted the flag. And I wasn't the first person to put Gundams on TikTok because there were others before me, but I think I was the first one that was trying to do tutorial style stuff and like in-depth customization, because the most common thing that I saw was like really funny stop motion with people posing their Gundams using the audios, and it's like, oh, this is so perfect.
Well, and like I think one of the reasons you like you mix in those helpful tutorials with like the stop motion and everything, and there's a very like you got a knack for the aesthetic of it too. Like everything is very well shot in your TikToks. Like, is there like an extensive process to setting all that up, or do you just have like, because it is very like there's a production quality with your stuff.
Is a Mi Photo phone mount. I love this mount, and it's got a shoe on it. I have an Elgato arm that's suspended above my desk. It used to be one of those old scissor arms that I would use. When I built this desk, it was built for the sole purpose of being shot on. So I actually have two of those LED shop lights, but they're at an angle, so there's no shadows, but I don't need a key light. And as far as like shooting like those panoramic shots, I've got a motorized dolly, tripod. Yes, I'm going to answer that question with yes. There is an extensive process. I invested in actual editing software on my phone. I do all the editing on my phone. Like I don't have the patience to actually do it to the computer and use Final Cut or something. Actually, the app I use is LumaFusion. And that's what I use for all my stop motion, and it's how I get those like zooming in and out camera effects. So if I were to like so a typical build video, like I just did one where it was stop or time lapse of me building a Dio Lego set. The entire time of actually building the thing only took about 20 minutes because it was just a camera of me putting Lego pieces together. But actually editing that took about an additional hour. And that's about how long it takes, as long as I'm not doing any voiceover work. If I'm doing voiceover work, you add another 45 minutes onto that, because I think part of it is I'm a perfectionist. I'm very self-conscious about what I put out. Like even to this day, if I go back to my old videos and I'm like, I'm going to delete this. It's going to go into the nether and no one's ever going to see it again. So that is awful. So I'm super hard on myself, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get. I've heard a lot of content creators. I think I've heard Parker say the same thing before.
Good luck finding my original videos.
People
I've had people go all the way back, and like be like, I made it to the end, and me be like, wow, I didn't know I needed to delete all of these, but thank you for reminding me. Or like, especially in like videos that you can tell like the trends of TikTok have changed. Like back 2 years ago, 2-something years ago when I started, where everything was in 2x. Everything, no matter what.
That bugged me, like
Yep.
irrationally so.
Yep. I look back and I'm like, oh god, I hate this. But like, I literally was talking to my friend the other day and I was like, man, I hate this. Can you believe that I used to look at what we used to be doing? And she was like, that was the trend. That was what people did. That's how everybody's videos looked. And I was like, I hate it. I was like, I don't like it.
That is one of the things that I have never been able to get behind on TikTok is the trends. Like I'm like, I want to do that. That doesn't look fun at all. If a trend looks fun, I'll do it. But otherwise, it's like, eh.
I feel that.
TikTok masters sharing TikTok tips here.
I don't know about that.
I don't own that title. I'm nervous now. Again, self-conscious about myself. I'm not a master.
Guys, you do good work.
So do you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first video that I ever like. There is that one video that you never forget that gets you to follow the person. For you, Josh, it was you were walking. It was when they came out with the achievement filter, and you were walking out of the house, and it's like 30 years old and still plays with like something. And I'm like,
I remember that one.
Duetting it, and I immediately run to my front door, kick it open, and I'm like, boom.
That's right. I forgot that you duetted that. Oh my god. Wow, that was a long time ago. Holy shit, yeah. That was a good one. It
Come
was
on,
30-year-old and still cosplays, I think, and then you were like
Yep.
30 years old, still does Gunpla, and I was like, yes! This person is the best. Oh, man. Wow. Memories.
I love that.
Um, I think you're up, Parker.
I am. You just did stuff. I'm just
I'm sorry.
focused.
Did I catch
No,
you when
you're
you're like mid?
always,
Yeah,
always,
I'm good at that.
always
Parker's
mid
so
like
focused.
focus times because Parker doesn't know what she's doing yet. What tips do you have for individuals who want to paint minis?
Honestly, it's the same thing as I say for wanting to get into any hobby, like whether it be gunpla or like making props. There's a huge like stigma behind it that you need to blow a bunch of money, and in order to be successful, like you need the $150 airbrush, you need the $60 nippers, you need the $6,000 camera to shoot the like. There's this huge thing, and my advice would be before you look at the big creators and are like, oh, this is what they use, I'm going to get that. I Snap Plastic uses God hand nippers. I do. I'm going to get those. Hold off. Do your research. Figure out what's comfortable with you, because you will. I have constantly just given stuff away to people, like slightly used, gently used, but it just doesn't work for me. I'm not going to talk about how much money I spent on that stuff and then giving it away, but I'm sure I can write it off on taxes somewhere. But no, do your research, and then you will find stuff that is comfortable for you. And then once you get comfortable, you can kind of let your creativity flow. And one of the other big things that I would say is that you're going to do something. And I know that we just kind of joked about how, oh, my stuff is awful. And like, I'm so embarrassed by that thing. It's your thing. I mean, it's okay for you to kind of like critique it. Um, but putting yourself out there is an excuse for other people to give you feedback. If they don't enjoy it, then that's fine. They can move on. That's actually one of my biggest pet peeves. Is like I will post a picture of a completed piece, and they're like, "Oh, you should have done it this way." I'm like, nope, that's my piece, and I did it exactly the way I intended it to.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good advice, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, there's a very like vocal. I think anybody who's a content creator experiences like that, like feedback element, which is great. That's a part of the process, but also there are things that you don't have to internalize every piece of feedback you get. Some feedback is just kind of people possibly sharing something that they don't necessarily know either, right? Like, there's a lot of that. That's pretty profound.
And I think for that, like, find a community of people that you can trust who will give you constructive feedback. And like, the recipe for constructive feedback is one, the person needs to be able to call out what you did wrong. Two, they need to be able to share how they did the exact same thing wrong. And three, share with how they fixed it and provide that as an option with the not the expectation that you have to do it that way. You can find your own way, but here's an example of how I did it. Like, it bugs me when I see people saying, "Oh, you should have done it this way." Why? Where is the evidence for why I should have done it that way?
That's good life advice.
Yeah,
Honestly.
I also admitting that like I know this because I did something. Like I think that's important because I think a lot of the times, especially with like bigger creators or anyone really that thinks that they have a little more experience than somebody who's learning, it's easy for people to be like, "Well, you're doing this wrong," but not remember that like you also had to do it wrong to figure it out, or somebody had to do it wrong and tell you. Like to be nice to people,
Mm-hmm.
a concept.
I, one of the biggest questions I get asked when I start showing off airbrushing is, "Hey, my paint. How thin should my paint be?" And I will give like my recipe for how I thin my paints, and someone will reply with, "Oh, that's too thin." I thin my paints for every 40 milliliters of primer. I mix in 100 milliliters of thinner, and it's a 2-to-1 ratio for my paint. And a lot of people say, "Oh, it's 50-50." 50-50 is too thick. Um, and I know from personal experience because I've ruined an airbrush because my paint wasn't thinned enough. Um,
Mhm.
so, an example of how I totally jacked up an $80 airbrush because my paint was too thick.
Well, and again, like, there's an art to providing feedback too. There's an element, and I think that's one thing that we all forget when we're on social media. And like, I've commented on people's things where I'm like, "Well, have you considered doing this?" But there is an element of like and Chad is saying, you know, like empathy, but that's a huge component of it. But also feedback needs to be constructive, or it's just you making noise. And like you touched upon that, right? Like I do that in work as a like in a managerial supervisor position. I ask if somebody, if I'm telling you you're doing something wrong, I need to have an explanation of how to do it correctly, or how I'd like to see you do it, even if, you know, correct is subjective. But also, when people come to me, they need to have an idea of what they want to do, right? Like if they've got a complaint, if they've got a problem, like what is something that you can help us work through? They don't have to have the answer, but just having having some process or like some hints is very, very important. That's
You said chat, and I immediately got self-conscious because I'm like, oh, that's right, there's a text component to this Twitch thing I would not been paying attention to.
That's good though. That just means you're hanging out with us, which is what we want.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
The fun part.
Chat, we're kind of through our questions a little early. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
Go too fast, I'm sorry.
No. No, I think it's funny too because we kept trying to like reroute ourselves from our conversation to make sure that we got through the questions, and then we finished the questions early.
We should have just gone off the rails.
Should have just gone off the rails like we normally do.
Yeah.
Just completely gone.
That's what we get for trying to be professional.
Quote unquote. The start of the show was before it was ever Highlight Heroes, was just because my Twitch wouldn't work and Josh had agreed to help me paint something.
Yeah.
Aww.
So we put it on this channel instead.
Yeah. Parker Paints turned into Highlight Heroes because alliteration.
So Parker Paints is such a good title too. One regret, it's that this isn't called Parker Paints anymore.
It's okay. It's not about Parker painting anymore. I mean, Parker's still painting, but it's fine.
It's a part. So Vault's classic question. Vault's one of our community members, asking Snap. He wants to know if you could play any monster as a player character. So anything out of the Monster Manual.
Blue Dragon.
Oh.
Blue Dragon. That's it. Not gonna. Nope. That's it.
That's what I painted last time.
Blue dragons live in the desert. They're smart. They're conniving. They're evil, and they breathe lightning out of their faces.
Okay, and that's that. I mean, that's enough reason for me.
Yeah, for sure. That's valid.
I have a hypothesis for you because you're a Gundam fan here, a Gundam fan of Gundam enthusiast maker. Gundam 00 is to Gundam Wing as Gundam Seed is to Mobile Suit Gundam. Thoughts?
I'm about to oust myself. So there are two types of Gunpla enthusiasts. There are those that watch the anime, and there are those that only watch some of the anime. I am that one. I have watched very little Gundam anime. I've seen a little bit of Seed, a little bit of Unicorn, and all of Gundam Wing, as well as the movie Endless Waltz.
That's a good movie. That's a beautiful answer to that question. I've seen cosplayers get asked the same question, and it's such a catch. It's almost, a cosplayer doesn't have to see every piece of a medium, right? Like, I cosplay Magnus. I haven't seen everything that's been done on the Adventure Zone, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so you like, I appreciate that answer and the honesty behind it too, because a lot of the time people think that content creators know every single piece, like, of every single fandom that they're related to, and that's not always the case.
It's terrible because like people will come to me like, hey, so what do you think of this and this and this? And I'm like, that sounds cool.
So does the passion for the Gundam building too is really the love of the kits and the robots, right? Like that's, I can
absolutely. No, it's I'm a fan of the art form. And I think that I love the ability to express myself in different ways. And actually that kind of leads into another question that I get asked a lot is like so you can't see it. This is a terrible filming position because all the like nice, pretty painted ones are directly behind me.
In the case.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like, I started working on this Spawn goof custom. So painted up, I commissioned a red flowing cape for him, but it's a Gundam that looks like Spawn from the McFarlane comics. And there's two ways that the process gets started. Process number one is I get this idea, and then I start finding the pieces to how I'm going to pull that in reality. Or I see a kit, and I'm like, okay, this kit can become this. Um, so yeah, I love the ability to express myself through this art form, and I love the clean lines and the finishes and uh, almost the tactile feel as well. Because I think I drew for a while in college. I almost was an art major. I actually had enough credits to get a art degree, but I went business and I got a bachelor's in marketing. Um, so I love that kind of ability to put pen to paper and pull it that way. But more than that, I love kind of pulling it into like that 4D realm where you can like hold it in position, that kind of thing.
Well, and that shows in your work because like I skirt Gunpla as like a kind of a newbie. Like I have a few back here that I've made, right? And I've done some custom paint stuff now, like starting to dabble. Somewhat inspired by you, but there's a lot of people in the hobby who limit themselves because of the canon. And when you look at your work, Snap, like it is an artistic representation. Like you take it and make it something new, which is like one of the reasons that I'm always so excited to see your work. Like it shows in what you make. So yeah, appreciate that.
Also, if you notice me doing this, is the classic like I dropped a part Pete. Like
You're hunting, yes, that's a good move.
Perfect.
All
I
right.
found it, but
Sarah is Coffee, our amazing friend and recent god of Twitter.
Twitch god.
Yep.
Or Twitter god.
Twitter god, yeah.
Twitter god.
And Eldritch god of the server. Do you have any moments from a campaign that you are like especially proud or fond of?
yes.
Okay, this is a good question.
Are we
Okay.
getting the story again?
So no, it's the story. Yeah. So it was the one. Yes. So this was a one shot that was run by Dice Cream Sandwich that I got to play with the governor, and I played a Tabaxi Hexblade Warlock who talked like Antonio Banderas, and he was like the Puss in Boots, but with a Eldritch Blast, and it was amazing.
Very suave.
So the story is that this big evil warlord was attacking this small village, and we had to defend it. And so while everyone was huddled inside I say that like they were cowering. They weren't. They were strategically preparing for an invasion. My character and Josh's character snuck out, and we had to roll super high on our stealth checks. And because he was a rogue, we had that benefit of being stealthy because I was not stealthy. We waited for the main force to pass us, and we waited for the big bad to go by. And so, Josh, tell us about all those amazing sneak attacks that you rolled.
Yeah, I had been poor Dice, like, and he's such a good sport. We had been just demolishing everything he had thrown at us. I got like a couple nat 20s on sneak attacks like in the first fight, and just we blew through. The whole party was destroying it. Blew through this first encounter. So Dice was pretty prepared for me to make a very heavy sneak attack shot, and Snap knew this and had a plan based off of that. And oh my god, was it good, man!
Okay, so the big bad like marches by. I'm like, okay, this is very important. Josh is gonna take his shot first, and Dice is like, okay, rogues do bullshit. Okay, fine. And then I'm gonna take my shot. That's very important. I want it to be clear that his arrow, because we're both shooting arrows, is gonna go first. Then mine's gonna go. Okay, fine. He didn't really give it much thought. I'm like, okay, this is perfect. He's not suspecting it. So Josh takes his shot, rolls tons of damage, like about to murder this big baddie, and he throws up shield and deflects it, which is what we wanted because that burnt his reaction. And then my shot goes off, and I cast Banishing Smite on it, and it hits him. And it crits, and it's gorgeous and beautiful. It wasn't enough to banish him, but you just see this look of like realization across the DM's face, and it's just like, yeah, that hits it. Oh,
You bastards!
yes. No. And that was also the same campaign where I'm like, I'm gonna cast Summon Greater Demon. No, you don't. You don't have the blood to do it, because he was like, there's a material component. You don't have it. You're not casting. I'm like, oh.
So then you spent the rest of the like it was right at the end. You spent the rest of it like collecting blood from the corpses that you had created. Yeah.
He was like, okay, you can collect this much. It's not enough. It's this much. I'm like,
And we get to
Yeah,
revisit these characters, Dice has said.
Yes, I'm so excited for that. When he's posted that, I was like, yes, this would be so good. Actually, another one very similar to that. I'm surprised Dice keeps asking me back because I keep doing this. On our latest one shot, it was the Monster Hunter that you weren't able to go to, and they're like, "Hey, is anyone available to this?" I'm like, "Me, pick me." I played a White Dragon, Hexblade Warlock. Sorry, and he let us be, I think, like level 15 or 16. And so at those higher levels, you get to start taking some really interesting spells that don't use spell slots for warlocks. So he sicked a Mind Flare, a Bone Devil, and a Bale on us. And my character snuck around the side, being all sneaky like. And everyone else is like, "Why are you leaving the group?" Because they're like in the group, they're casting buffs on each other. My character's like off the side, and I sneak around a pillar, and he's like, "Okay, the Mind Flayer doesn't see you." I poke my head out around the corner, and I flip him the bird, and I say, "Psst, catch!" And I cast Finger of Death. And he's just like, "So what does that do?" I'm like, "Roll damage." He failed his saving throw, and he did a great job of like giving it flavor. But the Finger of Death basically went straight through his forehead and like sniped him.
That's amazing. For those of you who I know a number of folks here watch, but Dice is another Twitch content creator. Like we auto host him, great guy, and he's hosted a number of us of our sessions and stuff like that, and he invited us to play with him. So yeah, just that plug there too, because we're talking about all of his content and the stuff that he's organized. Thank you, Dice, as well for including us in those.
That there has been a couple things in his session, like, and I gave him a French accent, so he was all like "Sacre bleu," and I did the banishing smite again with the bow. He's like, "Oh, not again." He actually said it on stream, and it was great, and it worked this time. And as soon as I let the shot fly, I was like, "From Paris with love."
Oh my god.
My God. I can't believe you did it to him twice.
Yep. And I was like, he's not going to invite me back. That's it. No more.
If you're having fun, that's really all that matters, right? He's a good sport.
I think I was having too much fun.
So what you're telling me is that if any of us ever DM for you on this channel, that lots of shield and counter spells need to be prepared. Got it.
Sneaky shenanigans. Yeah, sneaky shenanigans are going to abound, yo.
Not shenanigans. Here's a good question. Have you ever played any mecha-based TTRPGs? I've never even heard of them.
So, I played War Machine, which is... so, you got Warhammer 40k, which is traditional, like, Orc, Space Marines. Everyone knows that. War Machine was a steampunk-based tabletop RPG, very similar, except instead of using, like, melta-guns and orcs, I don't know the terminology, you use these steam-powered robots with, like, Civil War era muskets that fired magic bullets. It was just so much fun. I played Signar, which were heavily based on range and teleportation. If you've ever seen me play, I like bipping and bopping all over the place. I love to teleport. Nightcrawler is my favorite superhero.
That's
Me
badass.
too.
He's a blue boy, and he's like poof, poof, poof.
He's my favorite.
So I played War Machine 2, and I played Kadron, the red Russian kind of bulky guys with the axes. That was my MO there. That's good stuff. War Machine is excellent.
I've also played Battle Mech a long time ago. So it was actually Mech Warrior in tabletop form.
Yeah, I remember Battle. I never got to play, but it seemed very cool.
I played like once, and then it was so hard. That's the hard thing with like tabletop role-playing games. Whereas D&D, we can hop in a Discord server and we can throw together a campaign. It's like awesome. With tabletop role-playing games, you need people, and it's even when there's not a pandemic going on, enforcing social distancing. That's hard to get people together.
Yeah. And with those, especially like the war tabletop style ones, that's an incredible hobby investment. It really is. Even if you're not going into the painting and stuff like that, they're expensive kits. The rule books and all that adds up.
I don't want to think about it.
All right, here's a big question, and this is a D&D one. I'm not sure, if you really collect D&D minis specifically, but just for building a collection even, and this might be our last question, guys. We're pushing the hour mark. Any suggestions for building up enough minis to use in a campaign?
So, when I first started wanting to play D&D, I invested heavily in a bunch of like extras, like the spell cards and stuff. Amazon has a collection of these. They're like generic minis of like they've got goblins and slimes, and they're all very poorly made. Like the quality is not there, but it's like $10 for 100. So if you just need like an army that you want to throw on the table, and you make it clear, yes, this looks like an ooze. It's not. It's a devourer. Just go with it. That's a good place that I started with, and then also with those, just adding on to it with epoxy, green stuff, 2-part of epoxy, like and modified in such a way, and then add some customization to it. The beautiful thing about D&D is that imagination abounds. So as long as you have a little bit of that, you just need some representation. I I can paint minis. I've painted some War Machine minis, and it's fun. But I deal in larger scales for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the Gunpla stuff. It's I mean, I see people do like even like just what's become really increasingly popular for D&D is the cardboard cutout sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are a really good way to get some some color and vibrance on the tabletop and a little bit of like three-dimensionality. They're not like traditional minis, but they add in that kind of look. They add a little something extra, and that's a really good way to start too. I've seen people use plastic soldiers. I think one of the best ways people I've seen do it, and I'm sure you've both seen this too, is they have a family board game. Like minis in board games are becoming increasingly popular. So like with games like Scythe and Game of Thrones, they have these beautiful 2-scale minis that fit perfectly on the D&D tabletop. Like, and you can buy up a board game for 30-40 bucks out of your hobby store, and some of them have like 30 or 40 minis in them. So you're essentially paying $1 a mini, and they look just so aesthetic. The Game of Thrones one, particularly, there's one specific one that's in the 16mm scale, which is like your D&D tabletop scale. You can just buy up that board game. I think it might be 60 bucks for the whole board game, but that's got enough minis in it to fill up any character type you would ever need, and they are beautifully made. Like, I highly recommend those.
The other thing you can do, I'm not condoning this. It's kind of like one of those things where, like, it would be a shame if people found out that you can call companies like Hasbro and whatnot that produce these board games and say that some of them were damaged or broken, and they will usually sell you just the figures at a very, very steep discount. That one. It would be a shame if people found that out.
We don't condone this, but what an excellent idea.
That's so important to find that out.
I don't know. It'd be a shame if people.
It'd be crazy.
That's a good tip.
Also, 3D printers. That's another addiction. Oh gosh.
That's a whole other hobby too, in and of itself. God, we could be at this for hours. All right, guys. Oh,
real quick before we go. So one of the questions I did see is, what are you working on right now? It was kind of like down in the list.
Okay.
So, how do you guys feel about The Mandalorian?
I love him.
So I started making a West Star blaster, and this is a
Ooh.
first part of a silicone mold to cast it in resin.
I literally
That's
saw
so
this
cool.
Sorry, I was like, I put it up on the desk. I'm gonna share it. Gosh darn it! Yeah.
No, it's cool.
So, okay, now we're not gonna end on time because
No, we're not.
Victory is mine.
resin casting.
Yeah.
You literally build your own molds. Like, can you walk us through that process? Because that is a hella, like, again, like I do prop building for cosplay. that's like the pinnacle. Like that is such a complex art form. Like, how did you get into that? Like, how do you do it from home?
So the first thing I did is I went to Michael's, and then I went to Hobby Lobby because they didn't have all the parts at Michael's. But I started out doing Alumilite, and they make a miniature resin kit. So it includes the silicone mold components as well as the resin components. It's two-part, easy to mix because it's by volume. And the first thing I ever cast was D&D tiles. This was back when I first started getting into Critical Role, and I saw, hey, Matt Mercer makes these amazing dwarven forge. I'm going to go buy some. Oh, those are expensive. They look gorgeous, but they're expensive. So I got out some clay, and I sculpted like just a 2x2 square, and then gave it some texture for some grass and mud. And then I poured the silicone over that after spraying some mold release on it, peeled it up, and then I hit it with the two-part resin, and then just kept doing that over and over again. Um, and then, like I said I had almost had enough credits to do an art degree. A bunch of the art classes I took was sculpting and mold making. So I actually cast a. Do you remember StarCraft?
Oh yeah.
So I cast a Protoss zealot in bronze that's downstairs in our book room.
What? Okay.
Yeah, so
Is that on
I
your
sculpt-
Instagram? I demand photos. Well, outside of
I will put them up. It'll be a throwback. So I sculpted it out of wax, and then we dipped it in like a slurry. It was like a mixture of plaster of Paris and concrete. And then you throw that in a kiln, and it melts all the wax out. So you lose it; it's gone forever. And then pour molten bronze into the
Cavity.
cast that you just made. Yeah, and then you break that open, so that's gone forever. And then you're left with the bronze figure that you made.
So you do all that sculpting and work for a one time.
So if anything goes wrong, it's
Jesus. God, that's incredible.
so much fun. But yeah, for this, what this was is a guy actually sent me. This is a commission. He sent me a 3D printed Westar blank, but the print was so thin and light. Like he wanted to use it as a prop gun, but it would basically be like taking a paper prop gun because that's how thin the layers were. So I painted this with several layers of paint, and then I attached some plastic sheets to it. Because you can buy they're from by Evergreen, I think, and it's like 0.2 millimeter to 5 millimeter, and you can apply those in different thicknesses to give it some texture. And then once I cast this, it'll be resin, so it'll actually have some heft and a little bit of durability to it.
That is amazing. What a process.
I went over your time. I'm sorry.
You're fine. We're gonna do one more thing before we close it out. Do not apologize. Yeah, thank you. We're gonna show how far we got. Where did everyone go?
I didn't get far at all.
He has no legs.
He's got a torso and some arms. That's good. I like that we created a challenge for you. Something you can build in under 30 minutes. We drug out into a long, lengthier process with our distractions.
Yeah. Oof.
Parker, what about you?
Another-
How'd you do?
It's just got little
Gorgeous.
bitty parts painted,
You
but
get good at the detail though. Like
I'm working on it.
that's not messy at all. That's really clean.
I'm trying.
Damn, Parker. All right, he's not all together because I paint in parts. But there's my boy with his steampunky rifle on his robo horse.
I love his robo horse.
That's so cool.
He's about.
I love the
He'll
horse.
probably be looking down the rifle, but if I do that, he's gonna fall apart right now. So, yeah,
That's fine. Man. Yeah, that's good.
All right,
I love it.
We did it. We made some headway. We made some models.
We did it.
Thank you, Snap. Social. Where can everybody find you, man?
So as of right now, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, and also I'm on Twitter. Like I can tell who my dedicated fans are because they find me on Twitter, and I've only got like 200 followers there. But like I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and obviously TikTok. I snap plastic. I_snap plastic. If you're interested in getting some custom I snap plastic stickers, you can check out my coffee page, $5. Or if you're interested in getting a commission done where you have one of these things sitting behind you that you can point to and say, I totally didn't make that. Yeah, you can totally check that out on coffee as well.
Hell yeah. Okay, I have the sticker sitting right here above my my computer desk too. Like it's the I snap plastic and then your face. What do you got?
I got new ones made.
Oh my god, those are sick. Look
Oh,
at that.
those are cool.
With the death scythe like look too, right?
So actually, if you guys want to drop your addresses, I can send you a couple.
Yeah.
This stuff is the best stuff. Okay, guys, thank you for hanging out with us. Parker, anything else?
No, we did our announcements. Come hang out with us. Our next program on the channel is going to be Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern whatever time it is now.
Bye,
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.